Sean knows. Step two, wellness listing that was in your guys. We can see on video. It'd be nice to do a refresher.
So we get these guys' house over here, these guys' house go over here.
That's some fun.
And then you provide finances, you're gonna wait trouble finding this. So you got to be we deal the guy on
Alicia, what do you want to make?
$670,000.
I don't know. Probably sitting in that traffic zone if I don't take on right away because I have to go right tomorrow anyway. I wanted to see about
The bank runs the whole problem.
I'm really huh? No, it's not. No, the marketing space. Thank you. Somebody who's not well, it's not does there's a lot of stuff. Yeah, there's a lot of well, the Michael Lewis people, I know they do a lot of this primarily. Yeah. They help you.
What is the word investment?
No, I don't know. They just sit there and talk about marketing. Sounds familiar. Letters and things like that.
Okay.
What was the thing?
Are they here?
Yes. And then the other one.
Okay. Okay.
But I know.
My brother's buying a house in Charlotte. That's pretty good. I can't get it.
Now I'm ready.
Now you're ready. That's fine. No worries.
I want to talk about how that email.
Cup number 2.
Yeah.
There's nothing
I
wrong
agree
with
with that. I am gonna take this call.
Should we take notes or are you gonna have this like on
Yeah, definitely take notes because surprise, surprise, I'm not necessarily doing exactly my book. I know that a lot. Yeah, if you watch me teach before, that's not going to be any surprise. So.
Did you get the piccolo?
Yes, I did get the piccolo. Indeed.
Alrighty. So today you're gonna be, hey lovely girl, married woman. She is married, huh?
She is indeed.
Hey, I love married women.
Yes. Very cool. It is old, isn't it? Newly married. How many weeks have you been married now?
4 weeks.
4 weeks.
You're still on
That's
your
not
honeymoon.
married. Isn't that lovely? Isn't it? That's not married.
I was married 4 weeks once.
So anywho, this is part of the launch Saver series, as you know. The emails have been sent out. You have the information in the red books. Let me see, I need to get a sign-up sheet. I'll get a sign-up sheet, and for those of you who would like anything to do with, if you get a phone call, press pause and walk outside, then say hello. So if any of you would like me to send, this is what it's going to look like, okay? Right? So that's what Eric is going to be helping you with today, and whatever other pieces of wisdom he has with regard to a listing.
So much wisdom.
So much wisdom. Blah, blah, blah. Yes.
So the question, if you started with one email and you've changed it now, like within, you guys gave me one I like better than I had, so do we need to let you know we just want the other one, so it always goes to the new one?
That's a Bailey question.
Great,
Okay? I don't know how that does it. Yes, but I don't know how it
thank
will
you.
change it.
And you can merge them together.
Okay. So anyway. Right now. How was Caravan?
Oh, how wonderful.
It was wonderful.
For the record, that's the second time so far.
It was
Was
so
it fun?
wonderful. It was. We
Was it
learned
nice?
so much from him. The homes were beautiful.
They
We
went
learned
with
a
Trey.
lot.
Oh, nice.
Three, you went to see three, right?
Three.
Do you go in one
car nice. from
here? Well, we kind of just partnered,
Sure.
talked about it before we left and we partnered up. So
like
3
me,
or 4
Trey
people
is
in one
very
car?
shy, so you know,
Yeah.
I'm sure he was not very
I would like
forthcoming
to
with
do that, I
information.
just didn't know if everybody got in their own separate cars or some of them do caravan.
Caravan is everybody leaves from the same place. Caravan, like the ones in the desert.
Definitely helps.
You go,
Yeah, it was
Yes.
awesome.
right?
Yes, yes, thank you.
A caravan.
Yeah.
That's where it comes from. But anywho, so please take as many notes as you like. I am going to now get the sign up sheet I thought was in here, I'm sorry. And then I can send those PowerPoints to you, not PowerPoints,
Yeah.
the PDF to you as soon as I
Do you want me to just start with a piece of paper here and save you a trip?
No, I'll just get it, but thank you, Lynn.
Okay.
And I'll get it from, but I did send it to, the office last night with the link, the red book, so yes. So, I will go and get that now.
Fantastic. Well, welcome. Most of you I recognize from Ignite, which is awesome that you are still coming to educational stuff because it's very important because obviously, as you have probably already figured out, getting into real estate is kind of like trying to sip water from a fire hydrant that's broken. And you will not get it all at first, and so it's important to get bits and pieces as you go along. And so good on all of you for still being here. I do have a closing at 3 o'clock, so I am going to try to be a little quicker, so hopefully you can catch up. If you miss something, feel free to stop me. I also have 2 cups of coffee, which is going to aid in the quick speaking process. So, as you know, we're going to be talking about your listing presentation and what that kind of looks like. According to what's in the red book, it just has the presentation and what slides are included in that, which we are going to go through. But leave it to me to not quite follow exactly by the book. But there is some other information that honestly is far more important than the presentation itself that you all really need to focus in on and hone your skills in because it's going to make everything else that much stronger. So a little intro for those of you who don't know, my name is Eric Baker. I have been an agent in this office for about 4 years now. And to give you all a little bit of hope, my first year in real estate, I made $2,000 all year. Yes, living at mom's home, car repossessed, it was great. So, you know, that's the great thing about real estate. You know, oh, there's no cap to your income. There's also no floor. And so, you know, that's the dirty secret they don't tell you. So, if you've made more than $2,000 in your first year, congratulations, you're doing better than me. But then, very fortunate the next year, did about $6.5 million in closed volume, and then have been going up ever since then on the ALC this year, and it has been a phenomenal journey. And so, if you get discouraged your first year, just remember, at least you're not living with your mom, having a car repossessed, making $2,000 all year long. And if you are, there's hope.
Cell phone, my cell phone.
I don't know.
Always on it.
That and your keys, we need to get some kind of GPS
Around my
coordinate.
neck.
Um,
Oh, I see it.
I'll wait until you're done.
Seriously. Okay, onward and upward.
And so yeah, there's certainly hope. Don't get discouraged. That's one of the biggest things with agents when they get into the business is they get discouraged super quickly, and then that discouragement breeds. They kind of start going into themselves thinking they're the only ones who've ever done anything wrong ever, and that's not true. So just stick it out, be stubborn, and you will be successful at it. So we're going to start with the presentation and how to find it. You log into MyKW, and it'll bring you to this great page. If you're on John's page, you know, messed up. Hopefully you're on your page. Once you're here, click on My Market Center Intranet underneath there. That will take you to our Market Center page. And actually, to answer your question about the calendar, it's right here.
Oh, nice.
And then once you're on this page, go to links. And when you click on links, you will see the 2017 Q1 Chartmaster statistics. Now, obviously, that is going to update every quarter when we get new statistics released, because these listing presentations are updated with the most current market statistics, which is great because you're always giving your client up-to-date information. Once you click on that, it will take you to the Google Drive for Rawls Group, and you will see the toolkits. And so you'll see the reports and the toolkit.
I'm sorry, which one did you click on?
Yeah, no, you're fine. So you click on the 2017 Chartmaster statistics.
Got it.
Oh,
And then that will take you to our Rawls Group Google Drive. And once you're on the Google Drive, that's where you will see the quarterly statistics, the report, and the toolkit. So you want to go to the toolkit. Once you go through the toolkit, you will see the different tools that are in the toolkit. Buyer tools, lead generation thing, training tools, seller tools. Obviously, if it's a seller presentation, you're going to go to seller tools. And then you can see you have a whole list of different things that are available to you underneath the sellers. And the one that we're talking about is the listing presentation. And it has it in a bunch of different forms, so it's got in the PDF, the PowerPoint, scripted scenarios, different things of that nature. And so, oh, that is 78 pages. Oh no, that's not what I'm looking at. That is not what I had printed out. Let's see, I'm looking for,
Who's got that kind of time?
okay, let's see. I think this is, yeah,
It's a good one.
yeah, this is the one that I was
So
looking
this
at.
one's
Is that the grab and
Which
go?
one is that?
That's the grab and go, yeah.
That's the grab and go we're looking at.
Correct. Yeah, and that's the other thing. You know, information is wonderful and it's great, but don't ever sit through and put your clients through 48 pages worth of presentation, no matter how great the information is. So the thing to keep in mind when we're going through the seller presentation is these are here and they're a little bit longer because they're meant for you to be able to customize yourself. You download this, the goal is for you to download this and kind of go through and add some of your own information, you know, add your own picture, add your own write-up about yourself, and go through and add or subtract any slides that you feel comfortable talking about. And that's important because some of these slides you may not understand. If you don't understand, take it out. Because if you don't understand how to talk about it, don't try to talk about it. So, as we go through, the first thing that comes up is the marketing. Marketing, you can see here it has your marketing strategies, your goals, my goal. And so when you're doing these, the goal of doing the seller presentation is to have more of a conversation than it is a presentation. And so when you're sitting here with your seller, you want to have it more conversational. You want to be sitting down somewhere instead of, you know, standing in front of, you know, standing in their living room presenting to them in their chaise lounges, being fed grapes. And so go through it, you know, as a conversation. So you outline, you know, you say, well, as a seller, obviously your goal is to get the highest price for the shortest amount of time, least inconvenience, the fewest problems. My goal is to implement the proven market strategies and ensure your goals, any market and the marketing strategies. The thing is, the most important part about this is going through it time and time and time and time and time and time again. Because the more you practice, the more it's going to become second nature to you, and that's what you want. You really don't ever want to be put in a situation where you're going on this listing presentation and you've only looked at this a couple of times and you're just as surprised as the next slide as your client is. You know, you don't ever want to be put in that kind of situation. That puts you at a disadvantage right off the gate. Because you want to be able to talk about things, and if they have questions about it, you want to be able to reiterate that and kind of know what's coming up. And so, you know, going through each one of these slides and studying them is the most important part, which is more important than me going through them here, because obviously you have access to all this. This is all going to be something that you can look at and study. And so the way it's laid out is it has the National Association of Realtors, how buyers found their home, which honestly I would venture to guess that the 51% is probably a little outdated. But nonetheless, it gives you a good breakdown. And the reason they have this in there is because it allows you to have a launching pad to tell your clients, since this is where your buyers come from, this is where I market. You know, you want to narrow in on that you're saying, you know, I'm going to go wherever the buyers are going to go. instead of just marketing out there for everybody, you need to make it very clear that you are zeroing in on where the buyer is going to come from. And then this is about the internet marketing that Keller Williams Listing Services had, and it appears on all those websites. We briefly go through that. You can add things on the marketing, things that you do a little differently, and like I said, this is all about adding your own stuff to it. You know, using what you're going to use in your own business, more so than going just line by line. So these are the 4 most powerful charts that we have from Chuck Carr, who does our statistics report each quarter. These are awesome because it just kind of gives you a overview of what the market is doing here in Atlanta. And so that has to do with your year-to-date sales price, percentage of original list price received by sellers, and the days on market. And it's really meant to be very simple because the reality is your clients aren't necessarily going to sit there and read this, so you read it to them. It's kind of like, working retail. It's like they ask you a question about a box and you literally read the box. Great.
Now, is this just our Keller Williams office, or is this all the Keller Williams offices in Atlanta?
So it's not even specific to Keller Williams. This is the first multiple listing services data. So this is all of Atlanta, all brokerages included, because it wouldn't necessarily be a true representation of the market if it was just
Thank you. I didn't think that through. Yeah.
Absolutely, no
Okay.
problem. And so you can literally just read exactly what they have written there. And this is an interesting chart that I'd like very much. And the easiest way to explain this to your clients is saying, the reason it's so important to get our marketing right, to get the price right, and to do everything correctly the first time out is because even through the downturn, just about the same number of homes sold every year, which surprises a lot of people. You can see that, this isn't the sold numbers. These are the sold numbers in the gray bars at the bottom. What fluctuated so heavily was the inventory, and people thinking that they could get, $1 million for their $300,000, 2,000 square foot home. And so, that's what caused the market collapse because of that difference there. And so if they have questions about saying, well, do you think we're going into a bubble or anything like that, you can tell them, no, because we've still got a really long way to come up in inventory between that. But regardless, it's important to know that still, you've got a 50-50 kind of chance of selling your home. So we need to make sure in any market to make sure that your home is listed correctly, marketed correctly, staged correctly, photographed correctly, and everything is done right the first time out. That way you can be one of the ones who end up selling. I'll be honest with you, this chart you probably would want to take out because the look in your seller's eyes are usually like you just did some kind of David Blaine magic trick in front of them. And so, yeah, it tends to be very crazy for them. It is very busy. And now if you know for a fact that your seller is a super tight CS kind of person and they love the statistics, then maybe sing them a lullaby by doing that. But you can also see here, this is another one that kind of breaks it down. It breaks the charts down into breaks that other chart down into kind of just wording, where it says peak of the buyer's market in 2009. We had 31,000 homes on the market. Now we've got 12,000. We had 16 months. We have 3 months now. So literally, it's just reading these slides and getting comfortable with them, where you can reiterate them at your leisure. Because ideally, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be sitting here, explaining this to them, looking at them, rather than with your iPad, right up here reading off of the the charts. We had a median sales price of 143 up to 259.9, and then you look at them like for confirmation after you're holding your own iPad. So you want to make sure that you have this information kind of ingrained in you, that you know and that you've memorized, just so it's comfortable for you. And this is one of the charts that they use, and this essentially breaks the charts down into different visualizations. So you can see the total closed listings. You had 96.5% of the sales to list price. If they had no price reduction, they had 99, and then not previously listed, 99.2, 12 days on market, and you can go down. And honestly, with these, again, this is stuff that you can get clarification by coming to the stats meeting, which I always encourage. because then you can actually talk about these in a much more comfortable environment. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time explaining the charts to you because honestly that's something that you guys need to be doing and finding extrapolation for those in your own way so you can actually explain them, because the part that I want to get to is more important than the information that's going to be found here. Yes?
You said this is updated, somebody updates this on a quarterly basis, so when you go to do grab and go,
Right.
you've got the most current?
Right. Yep. So this will always be updated as soon as they have the market or the quarterly statistics out. All of this gets updated at once. So I don't know what we're gonna do if Chuck Carr, if anything ever happens to him, we're gonna be like dead in the water. So God bless him for doing all this. Yes.
And didn't we have a stats meeting already for May?
We did for the for quarter one. Yes.
Okay, so when's the next one?
Probably in July, August. Yeah.
August.
So it's usually a couple of weeks to no more than a month after the quarter prior that had just passed.
Okay.
And then it goes through some of the not listed, and then this you can do it by the actual price point and area number if you happen to know that. Has to do with the failed listings. And again, these are things that you go through, read, and this will tell you everything that you need to know on that side. So read the paragraphs and see if that's going to be something that's applicable to your seller and something that you feel comfortable regurgitating to them. And then the slides that you are most comfortable using and talking about are the ones that you need to incorporate into your presentation. Yes?
Why would you use the failed, how would you use this chart?
Just to show them where you want to be, and the reason I say that is, say you're selling a $500,000 house, this is your market range right here. You can tell them, you can see a kind of dividing line here between this is most certainly a seller's market heavily. This is much more of a buyer's market, because that indicates that there are more homes on the market for sale than there are buyers to buy them. Whereas when you're in this, sub 500 range, it's a totally opposite story. So depending on your price point is going to depend on the conversation you're having with your seller. Because if you're in this market, you can say, chances are, you're going to list it and it's going to sell like that. You've got a little bit more work to do when you're in the higher price points and in the luxury range, because it's kind of a 50-50 shot if you're actually going to sell the house or not. And when it is, you've got to put more time, effort, and money into the marketing of the home and make sure that you're priced way more aggressively than you would be in the lower price points. And so, that's just where you would use that chart. And then this is another explanation for the last couple of slides, kind of in a different way, saying that out of 100 listings, 31 failed, most likely due to overpricing. 69 sold. Of the 69 that sold, almost 30 of them had to have a price reduction, and then the ones that were priced correctly. This one is a good slide because you can point to the sold ones and say, look, if we have to take a price reduction, look what it happens to your days on market. We go from 14 to 127. And to be quite honest with you, that is very accurate. And you have to make sure, that these, because the goal is when you go to the listing presentation is to make sure that you're selling a home that's going to actually sell. The best way to ensure that it's going to sell is by making sure the price is correct. And so that's what a lot of these statistics are meant to do, is to bolster your argument as to why they need to be listing at a certain price. And then those are the ones that you can do. And then this is, usually you don't need to go this far unless you have a very ornery seller. But if you have a unmotivated seller who's like, well, we don't need to move, we don't need it, I could stay here for 4 years and I'd be fine. It's like, yeah, well then why did you call me? Obviously you have a desire to sell somehow, so let's tap into that. And so for those people, this is relatively handy because you can combine like some of their bills and their monthly carrying costs and kind of break it down with them what they would be saving by selling now versus holding onto the home for however long. So in PowerPoint, you can go through there and there's equations in there, kind of like an Excel spreadsheet that you can go and play around with. And again, some of these slides that are very heavy on the numbers, a lot of them I find best to take out because the sellers are really wanting an idea and a knowledge of what the market is performing as, but not necessarily to the nth degree down to the number, because you can usually see them start to glaze over after a certain period of time. Yes.
Do you find yourself doing more of the PowerPoint presentation or the print?
So the way that I have it is I have my handy dandy iPad that, of course, when I bought it, I thought was going to be the greatest gift to God's man. And the only reason I use it is for the lesson presentations, and that's it. And so I use, I have the same kind of thing, but I use Prezi, which is just a different, it's an app that you can download.
Can you spell that?
Prezi.com. It's really cool. And again, it's honestly, I wouldn't put a whole lot of effort into doing something like that until you've mastered what you have first. You know, you've got to take a few steps, you know, before you start sprinting. And so I do it just because there's a lot of information that I have on there that's a little different, but it's very specific to me. But I mean, it took me a while to set up. But with PowerPoint as well, you can have it where you can control what's going on the iPad with your phone, which is what I do. So I hand the iPad to the sellers, and then I have it in my hand, and so I control what they're seeing as it goes on the screen, which makes it very cool and more interactive. And you can do that with PowerPoint as well. Now, the one chart that I am going to mandate and require that every single one of you have in your seller presentation is this one right here. This is honestly one of the most simple and effective charts, I think, that is out there and available. And the reason being is because you sit down and you say, well, Mr. or Mrs. Seller, at market value, we're going to attract 60% of buyers that are in your market. So what does a buyer in your market constitute? It's someone who has your price range, your rough area, and, you know, that's about it. They will thin out from, you know, the 60%. They thin down to 60% because some must have, a basement. Some must have, 3 bedrooms. They have to have this. They want to have this. So your home is naturally going to filter out some, but at market value, you're going to attract 60% of the buyers in your market. This is why pricing is so important, because if we go just below market value, 10% below, you get a gain of 15% of your buyers. So 10%, 15%. Conversely, if you are just 10% above, you get cut in half. Then you usually just shut up and hear that expression from your sellers. And so that's why, and explain to them what 10% looks like. If you have $300,000 home, what's 10% of 300,000?
I mean,
30,000. So, to the seller, it may not seem like a big deal saying, oh, well, I really want to do 325. You're almost at 30%. That much of a difference can cause you to lose half of your buyer pool.
well, and that would justify someone that's trying to sell their own home on why they should use a good home.
Yeah. Don't get me started about that. I had one of my, I had a very good client call me yesterday, and she's like, the first time my owner just went down the street from my house. It's awesome. And the great thing about this, and put these 2 slides back to back as they are in your presentation, because when you say this, you say, your buyer pool gets cut in half. The next slide is this one. The reason why that's so important is because look at what happens. You're most likely going to sell your home in the first 2 weeks. If you miss the boat and you wait and you do a price reduction 60 days in, your buyers are gone. They don't care about the price reduction anymore. They've already seen the house. They already concluded in their mind that it's overpriced. So they see the home come back up, and then their agent go like, even if the agent pulls it back up and says, oh, the house is reduced. What are the buyers going to say most of the time? Yeah, well, they should have. It was overpriced to begin with. It's not that they're going to come back and see it. So you've already missed the boat if you overprice it and you get it wrong the first time. Which is also why it's important to host your open houses in the first time. Because the agents who host open houses after 3 months, because they want to spur activity on it, obviously don't know what they're talking about, because the activity is gone. It's done been spurred. There's nothing left. It's gone. And so that's why these 2 slides are the most powerful ones in the entire presentation. Because you can say, if we overprice it, you cut your buyer pool in half, and not only are you cutting them in half, you're cutting it in half at the time that it means the most to you. And then, this is a very long way to explain the first 30 days and not my best interest in overpricing. With these slides, again, it's important to just keep it simple and keep it succinct and keep it to what the most important details are, which is exactly what I said. Staging, they go into staging, and this is very true. Days on market, non-staged, 90 days. Staged homes, 11 days. It's true. Even if you don't have a stager, just kind of, hire a friend or somebody to come in and do some of the staging. Or if you know somebody who happens to have a good eye with stuff, just tell them to come in. Yes?
Like call an ACL person like you.
Sure.
Just throwing it out there.
ALC person, but
Yeah.
Well, I feel like I'm pretty good at that. Can we do it ourselves too?
Yeah, you can.
Uh-huh.
I do
Save
most of
money.
I do my own home.
Save money? Yeah, I feel
Oh,
like
we
I'd
can't
get
call
off
you
of
that.
that.
I know, right? I'm sorry. Off the market. But it is very important. But if you have a particularly difficult seller or someone who has some interesting pieces, get a friend to come help you and
So
tell
it's
them that
less-
you're they're a stager because,
Less awkward.
well, yeah, and you can pawn off things on them, For example, one of my first listings, and of course it would happen to me that one of my first listings would have this situation, but I walked in, turns out the seller was an avid collector of Dr. Seuss paintings.
Oh my god.
Like 25, including 2 6-foot Cat in the Hat paintings that flanked the fireplace. Which that was fun, because I'm not having a poker face. I can only imagine. I'm like, you're great, breathtaking, as a matter of fact. And so I had a stager come in, and she's like, well, we want to take this stuff down. And after she left, I was like, I personally like it. But she's the professional. Guess we gotta take him down. And because sometimes people have very close attachments to these things. And she was almost shedding tears by the end of it. She's like, it doesn't feel like my home. I'm like, well, if I do my job, it's not going to. So yeah, yes.
A house that is, do you treat a house that is occupied different? And I would treat a house that is owner occupied different than investor owned and a tenant, because it's hell.
Yeah. So yeah, you do want to treat each one slightly different. With the vacant homes, obviously, if you want to do staging, it's going to cost a lot more. And so, the first thing you want to do is kind of bring it up to your seller and talk about how important the staging is, and see if they bite on the staging thing, and see how much. But I mean, it's usually $1,000 to $3,000 depending on the price point or the size of the home. But it works, because I had one of my clients had a property at the W Residences downtown condominium complex. Gorgeous 24th floor unit, 1,800 square feet, 2-bedroom, 2.5 bath, and you're asking $600,000 for 1,800 square feet, and almost $1,000 a month in HOA. It's a pretty tough sell, and it was listed for 482 days, and she got so fed up, and finally she called me, which was like, I don't know why I didn't call me before that. I'll take care. And so we worked out a deal where we split the staging costs. So yes, it was a bit out of my pocket, but what ended up happening was it was the fastest resale in the W's history since they opened up the sale. It was the fastest resale, and sold it in 2 weeks for $600,000 to an international doctor who flew to third world countries, who actually used the helipad to go back and forth to the
Oh
airport.
my god. What's the single? That's all.
I can find out for you. You're
That's
welcome.
me.
But it was because of the staging. We made sure that it was clean, it was staged, and the photography was phenomenal. I spent money on it. I did, but it paid off in huge things. And now, of course, she thinks I walk on water, which I'm like, well.
What was the staging cost?
The staging cost for that was 1,800 square feet. We did very high-end finishes, very modern stuff. I believe it was right around $2,000, $2,200 for 90 days. But so I paid about $1,000, $1,500 of that out of pocket. But that's to make what, 18 grand?
Right.
Now, how
And
does
who
that
paid the
work?
rest?
Yeah, I'll gamble. Yes.
How does that work? Are you paying the company up front?
They have agreements. Each one is a little different. So depending on which one you need to go through, you know, it depends on what they're going to tell you. Every contract is a little different, so it depends. Yes, you had a question back here?
She just answered.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
You may have said this, that they brought in temporary furnishings.
Yeah.
And.
Yep. It was honestly kind of fun because I was walking around with the designer and talking about the kind of look that we wanted to go for, and you know all this, and I probably spent way too much time at that listing. I made friends with the concierge. Like, I'm just here to clean it. Yes.
Give me an idea of the spectrum of entry level minimum to the ultimate.
Again, it depends on the staging company and it depends on the house. Because I had another home staged, which was a very similar situation. It was in Brookstone Country Club in Ackworth. It was about $500,000. And again, it had been listed for almost a year and a half in the same situation. Vacant, just nothing was working. I ended up getting the listing. And in that case, she paid for the staging because I explained it to her in such a way. She was like, you know what? I get it. I think it's awesome. I just want to get the hell rid of the house. Yeah. And I said,
it was vacant.
cool. Yeah. And so with that property, we only picked key rooms to stage because, I mean, it was, I think, almost 6,000 square feet. But we had the main living room done, the office, the dining room, and the keeping room and the master bedroom. But the basement, the theater, you know, the billiards room, the upstairs bedrooms, all that was left vacant. But it was important because as soon as you walk in, it was on the 18th tee box on the golf course, and it was spectacular. And after all that time, sold it in 24 hours.
Yeah, which made a big difference.
Yep. Don't know what that is.
It's
Have
not
no
me.
idea.
Sounds like pipes.
I have
It
a
does
question.
sound like that. Yes.
What happens if, have you ever had where the person, like for the condo, you said that was in the W?
Yes.
Have you ever had where someone says, I'll take it, and they want the staging with you, like they?
Yeah, if that happens, it's a separate contract. That's not something that you would put in the purchase and sale agreement because it has nothing to do. The staging is totally separate. It's a separate contract. It doesn't belong to anything having to do with the seller. So it's like, sure, here's the stager's number.
Yeah, here's the stager's number,
Yeah.
call the stager.
Yes, absolutely. And then this talks about the thing with the beauty contest, saying that is, you know, it's the difference between price and condition. And one other slide that I think that you all need to add to it is a slide pertaining to photography because it's super important. And I think I threatened all of the Ignite class last time that if I find out that you took pictures of your listing with a cell phone, I'm going to come and punch you in the middle of the night while you're sleeping. So that's the presentation that they have. Know it, learn it, practice it over and over and over again because doubt breeds doubt. If you have doubt in what you're saying and you're not saying it with confidence and conviction, they're going to have doubt back, and then their doubt is going to make you even more doubtful. That's how it works. You know, it's like if if you're hiking with friends and you know you're about to walk across a bridge and one of them says, "I don't know, does that look safe?" Like, I don't know, does it? I don't know. And then the friend in the back is like, "Did someone say collapse?" So you have to have confidence when you're saying this and know that you know what you're talking about. The more that you know about this and the more comfortable you feel presenting this, the better off that the whole situation is going to be. And so practice, 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 and change it for you. So some of the things that I wrote down that I wanted to make sure that I got across is one of the most important things about the seller presentation is if you did not pre-qualify your clients over the phone, it depends on the circumstance. If they just if you set it up kind of relatively quickly, or if you just want to stop by the house and it turned into a listing presentation, whatever the circumstances may be, don't ever forget to ask questions. Ask questions, shut up. The more questions you ask, the more insight you're going to get into your client, the more knowledge you're going to gain. And one of the best stories about asking questions, it was a story from one of Brian Buffini's agents. And so they went to a listing presentation, and they had kind of talked on the phone a little bit before, and she was adamant that she wanted $800,000 for the house, no ifs, ands, or buts about it, that was what it was, and he knew that the house wasn't worth the full $800,000, but she was just like very rigid, and she just was not moving, but he kept asking questions, and saying, well, Why is that so important to you? You know, what makes 800 the number that you want? You know, because, you know, I see, you know, what shows in the mortgage record, you know, it doesn't necessarily see that, you know, did somebody tell you 800? He kept asking questions, and before the end of it, she was crying because she said that she was going through a divorce, and that was all the money that she had to live on, period. You think that changes the conversation a little bit?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You go from, you know, a conversation where you're trying to figure out, you know, oh, well, she's just, you know, if you didn't ask questions, you know, you'd probably be like, oh my gosh, she's so unrealistic, this is ridiculous, you know, she wants it. Well, the conversation completely changes when you find out their motivation behind it. You know, you're dealing with people on a very personal level. You know, this is their home. You know, this is something that they live in and interact in. And so you need to figure out what is their motivation for moving. You know, it's not saying that you're going to have that kind of conversation every time you go to a listing appointment, but you might. And you never know when you're going to. And so it's critically important that you always ask questions. And shut up. Let them answer. Because the more you do that, the more information you're going to get, and the more information you have about your seller, the better the process is going to be. Because when you understand them, the conflict is going to go away. Conflict only arises in the conflict only arises when expectations differ. So if you're on two different expectation levels and you don't ever ask about that and you don't ever talk about these things, you're going to end up getting a rub with your seller and not knowing why, because they're expecting something different than you're expecting. So it's so critically important in this process, in this point, you're building the rapport, you're building that relationship. Because for any of you who've either had buyers or sellers or both at this point, you know, you usually come out on the other end having a better relationship with the buyers than you do the sellers. Because think of how much more you're interacting with the buyers. They're in your car, you're talking, you're going into houses, you're spending a lot of face time with them. Whereas the sellers, you're not doing that. You know, it's usually the listing presentation that's great, you're there kind of at the beginning of the process, and then it just kind of sits and you're not really super duper active in it afterwards. So it is more important than ever to build that relationship, build the rapport that you have with your seller in this part of the process, because you're going to need it. That takes you through a little longer time period, because you're not as hands-on with your sellers usually as you are with the buyers. So it's very important that you do that. Yes?
I've found out talking to neighbors can give you a wealth of information, whether you're working with a buyer or seller. You find out some things that the seller may not tell you, and especially if you work with a lot of foreign investors, they haven't even been to they had never even seen the house.
Right. And that brings up a good point, which is do your research. Actually, that was a perfect way to segue into my next point. Thank you. Do your research. Look at everything that you can before you get to the home, so you're not surprised by anything. You know, you have some great tools with the tax records. Look at how much they owe on mortgages and stuff. How many times have they refinanced? Because all of these things are going to give you an idea of their financial picture. Don't be afraid to be a little creepy. You know, that's fine. You know, I went to a listing presentation a couple of weeks ago, and she was talking about buying another house, and she was like, well, you know, I mean, I do want a certain number out of this house, you know, and I don't know the buying process, you know, I don't know how I want to structure it, and the house is about $600,000 and she owed like $80,000, so I kind of laughed and I said, well, you know, you could probably purchase and sell this, you know, and then you could have a slow thing. And she kind of looked up, she's like, why do I feel like you know something? And I was like, I just do my research. She's like, I could. I was like, I know. And so, you know, and it was a good thing though, because, you know, she's realizing, you know, she realized at that point that, you know, I had done a lot of research on this. I had figured it out. And so, you know, if they know that they can trust you to know what you're doing, they're going to trust you to know what you're doing to sell the house. And so it's important to do all the research that you can. Google, you know, do a Google Street View, you know, kind of go through the neighborhood, see what the neighborhood looks like. Drive through the neighborhood if it's convenient to you before the listing appointment if you have the time. Pull up all of the comps that you can and go back and look at everything. And on the comps, kind of piggybacking onto the seller's presentation, at the end of the day, most sellers, when you go on listing presentation, What's the one thing that they want to hear?
Price.
Price. What are you gonna sell my house for? Like, yeah, great, the market's performing, whatever. I don't give a shit. What are you giving my house for?
Yeah.
And when they do get impatient, which they will, I always just play this game. I'm like, well, that's why you called me here, so I'm not gonna give that to you off the hat. I'm like Ryan Seacrest on American Idol. You gotta wait. And so, you know, I go through my presentation, and then I pull up the comparable homes that have sold in their neighborhood, and you know, walk them through my process of what I've seen. You know, so this one, you know, has about, and of course, it's the funniest thing ever. You never, you know, no one ever feels like they're super nosy about their neighbors until you start going through the comps and everything, and then they're like, yeah, I know they have granite countertops. I'm like, oh, you know that? Okay. Good. So we're on the same page here. So what does this one have? Oh, the finished basement. Yes, the one with the bar. That's great. You know, they know.
Yeah, they do.
And so, you know, go through these comps, and as you're going through line by line, then once you're finished, sit there and say, so, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, you've seen the presentation. I have brought you up to speed on what the market is performing. You obviously know about the comps in your neighborhood. What would you sell your home for? What would you price your home at? And let them always give you the price. Let them give you the price. Because sometimes you'd be surprised. I have one situation, now granted, it's about the only time in 4 years that it's ever happened, but it has happened once where the seller, he was like, well, I mean, if I could just get 300 out of it, that'd be great. I was gonna list it for 350. It's like, 300 sounds great, yes. Absolutely, I am with you on that one. You should do this for a living. And so, you know, always give them the opportunity to give you feedback, and usually they'll be pretty close to what you're saying. But if they come up with a price, they're going to be more committed to the price. Yes.
What if you know, I mean, there's every market in Atlanta
Yes.
or anywhere in the country
Yep.
where someone controls that little niche, and you're going against the person that's controlling that, and you know
The
that.
neighborhood expert.
Yes.
Yeah.
So how do you handle the neighborhood expert?
I say, just because someone lives somewhere doesn't make them a neighborhood expert. And essentially, the thing to keep in mind, and honestly, if you build a rapport with the individual, you're not going to have that kind of feedback, because at the end of the day, people invest in people. People don't necessarily invest in ideas. People don't invest in product. People don't invest in companies. People invest in people. If that wasn't the case, Bernie Madoff would have never made a dime. He didn't even have a product. People liked him. And that's all it comes down to. And that's why I said this is so critically important, to build the rapport, build your relationship, because the relationship will take you to places that maybe your skills or your track record can't necessarily take you. And one of the examples on that is I live on the square in Marietta. So I walk around there all the time. There's this really lovely woman who owns this little shop on the square. And we got to talking one day. This is, I don't know, probably about 6 months ago. No, it's actually almost been a year now. And we got to talking, and she was in real estate, and she kind of looked at me. She's like, so, she's like, how do you do showings? Like, what are you talking about? She's like, if you're selling a home, how, do you let people just come in at will, or like, how does it go? And it's like, I feel like there's a story behind this. I'm like, but I'll play along. I'm like, we schedule the showings, and they come through, and they have to have a lockbox. Why? Long story short, one of her really good friends is selling her house. And I'm telling you, I have been in that store probably 12 times in the last 8 months. Every time she has some different story. It sounds like a complete nightmare. I mean, she's not doing the job. The home has been listed for about a year now. Beautiful $700,000 home, but you can tell the photographs are crap. The staging has not been done. Nothing has been done, but she feels stuck because she is so committed to that relationship that takes priority over any other skills or any other abilities of anyone else.
And all that, yeah.
But the point is, that's how strong relationship can be. If you can build that relationship with your client, you can get away with things a little easier. But they're also going to be more committed to you and more into the product that you're selling. and you won't have to worry about the neighborhood expert because they like you personally.
Do you specialize around the square? Or do you, like, where are you based out of here?
I mean, I'm in this office, but I mean, I was born and raised here, so, you know, I pretty much, I know a lot about a lot of areas because I was raised here.
Because you've been
Yes.
raised here.
And so, I mean, I've sold as far north as Canton, as far south as downtown. I've sold $1 million home in Buckhead, $200,000 home in Paulding County. So, I mean, you know, I'm very all over the place. So, and
I know
going
you have
back,
a closing when you're done. If I could get your card, I'm gonna
Yeah.
give you mine.
of course.
I got a deal.
Yeah, and so with the neighborhood expert thing, another thing that I would say back to that is, I'm like, you know, that's a very old school traditional way to think of things, because back in the day, a neighborhood expert was more of a thing than it is now, because, you know, they didn't have access to the MLS, they didn't have access to tax records like we do, they didn't have access to all this information. So, you know, little Miss Blue Hair, who sat down in the center of her neighborhood and got to know everybody within, you know, walking distance of her house, you know, that was more of a commodity than it is now. You know, I've never sold in Swanee, but I can tell you by just standing here right now that if I pulled all the information, I looked at the tax records, I looked at the comps, I looked at everything like that, I could be a neighborhood expert in Swanee in about 2 days. So the neighborhood expert
I agree.
thing doesn't have a whole lot of water with these, with the technology that we have nowadays.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, so how often have you gone to the listing and they say, well, Zillow says,
So
and how accurate is that?
So I try hard not to vilify Zillow. Reason being is because it separates me from other agents who go in there and say, oh, Zillow is shit, don't pay attention to Zillow, it's horrible, it's awful, it's ran by the devil and communists. And so, you know, I don't get into that bandwagon kind of mentality, because I tell them, I say, you know, well, I actually like Zillow in a way. And by saying that, I'm saying that I'm going to make sure that your listing is as good as it can be on Zillow. I'm going to make sure that everything is filled out on Zillow correctly so that we could possibly get a more accurate Zestimate. And that, you know, it is the most accurate, or I'm sorry, it is the most searched, you know, real estate search engine in the world. So why would I not use it to help market your home? But if they really have a question about the Zestimate, you can bring up the fact that the CEO of Zillow bought his home for about $5 million when the Zestimate was about $2 million. So obviously, it's not a science.
I like it.
Yes.
Yeah, just to follow up with Zillow, so my scenario is my next door neighbor of 3 years
Mhm.
has been trying to sell his home
Mhm.
himself on Zillow. He's a high CS,
Okay.
do it yourself for everything. He's staging the home himself. Non-social. I have popped over there several times, making sure, you know, handed him my card.
Great.
And yes, and said, I really, when you've had enough and you do wanna list it with a wonderful
Mhm.
agent, I would love the opportunity to at least come in
Mhm.
and give you a listing presentation. He said, yes, he would give that to me, but, besides the rapport thing, which I'm working on, any other approaches or things that you would, cause he's definitely getting geared up to put it on soon.
The biggest thing is, honestly, you can work people and work people and work people as much as you possibly can. At the end of the day, people will be people. And that's one of the joys of this career. If you could control people, everyone would be in real estate and we'd all be millionaires. But that's not the case. And so for me personally, I don't want to say that I go after low-hanging fruit, but honestly, I want to work with people who want to work with me.
There.
Because if the people want to work with me, they're going to send me referrals. Because people refer people like themselves. If I work with an ass, he's going to refer me other asses.
That's good.
Period.
That's true.
So if I'm working with someone and we have a great rapport and we have a great relationship, I'm going to pour way more into that than anything else. And I do the same thing at open houses. If I'm in an open house and somebody comes in and, you know, they hit the threshold of the door, I'm not buying, don't talk to me, I'm not interested, I'm not that. I'm like, okay, then go. And then, you know, it's like they're like bristled up, preparing for you to ask for them to sign in. And I'm like, bye. But the second somebody comes in there and we actually have a good rapport, we have a good conversation, things kind of are much easier, then I'm going to stand there and work with them a whole lot more. Why am I gonna pour effort into something that's not gonna return back? Givers give, takers take, period. Don't ever expect to get something from a taker.
Yeah, my report's with the wife, not him, and he's the one calling the shots, so.
Or at least he thinks he is.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, unless she gets like really determined, then watch how quickly that'll turn. And then finally, the very last thing that I want to make sure that you all understand is don't get discouraged by anything. The reality is the people who have been successful in this industry are the most stubborn-headed, bullish people I have ever met in my life.
True.
Myself included. Ask my mom. And I'm saying that to say, don't act like you're the only one who's ever made a mistake before. I went to one of the agents in her office about 2 weeks ago. I mean, this woman has done millions in closed volume for like 10 years. She lost 4 listings in 1 week.
Wow.
That would break a new agent.
Yes.
Completely. Because they would turn around and say, I suck at this, kick rocks, or, look like the beginning of, some kind of drama series. And the reality is, though, is that, yeah, she was disappointed and she was bummed out, but it's the focus on the next thing and the next thing and the next thing and making sure that you don't get caught up with whatever crap is going on right now. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to drop the ball. People are not going to like you. Okay. Not everyone is going to like me, and I'm fine with that. I don't care. And it's hard to do that separation, but you have to. It's a necessity that you separate your personal from the business side of things.
And you know when they don't like you.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I could give you a
You
list.
know the little frizzies.
No, yeah, don't even get me started with some of that. But it's true. And those are the ones that, okay, no more marketing dollars to you. I'm not sending you a pop by or a thank you card or a birthday note. I don't, bye. Because you want to pour yourself into people who are going to pour back to you. Because to build a successful business, you've got to build it referral based, period, end of story. That's how this industry works. It's relationship sales. You're in a relationship. But don't ever, ever, ever get discouraged and thinking that you're the only one who's ever made a mistake. The ones who are the most successful ones, you can ask. It's not perfect, it ain't pretty, but they're just so stubborn that they don't give up on it. And as a matter of fact, we had a mega agent who was in this office who has since who moved to a different brokerage because of personal situation. I got a hold of their marketing. And I was like, all right, I'm going to see the secret to the sauce. I am telling you what, there were like 10 misspelled words in the first document that I opened. And I was like, how in the hell have you been sending this out to these people? And I got so indignant at the end of it. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. I'm like, how is she done? It's because they're stubborn. And they continue to push through over and over and over and over and over again. You take the hits, you keep on rolling. You take the hits, you keep moving. Forward, period, end of story. That's how you build a business. And if you stop and you just say, oh my God, I'm hurt, and lay on the fetal position on the floor, which for the record, have done, it's gonna happen, but get back up off the ground. It happens to all of us. And last November, I had someone who was buying, so I had a $925,000 home for sale, and the buyers came into the open house, they loved it, so I was representing them as a customer, my clients as a client, and then they wanted to sell their $675,000 home in East Cobb. And at the same time, I had $1.7 million buyers in from Dallas. Same day, the one who was buying the 925 got pissed off because he thought that I messed something up that was latently in the contract. Obviously, expectations differed, my fault. And he got so mad, and he said that he didn't want to buy the house anymore and that he was taking his house off the market. And then, like 10 minutes later, the 1.7 million people were like, we just haven't found anything, so I think we're going to rent.
Oh my
I
God.
laid in the corner of my keeping room in the fetal position for like 2 hours.
Oh
Just
my
like,
God.
why am I doing this?
But just like that, that's how it can happen. It can change just
Immediately.
like that. Yeah.
And so that is why it's so important to constantly keep pushing forward and make sure that you always have something else in the pipeline. Don't ever count something until you're sitting at the closing table. Period. End of story.
Which we want to make sure
Separate-
you're not.
Yes, which I'm
doing
going to say,
when you're closing.
which I'm about to run to right now.
Yeah, do not.
And so if you're on 285 after this, apologize.
Thank you.
I'm the one in the white Lexus driving like that. But,
And you're driving a white Lexus now, you went from carless to white.
yes, I did. I went from repossession to Lexus off the showroom floor. So yeah, it is very fun. But absolutely, y'all have been wonderful. Y'all have a wonderful afternoon. Thank you very much. You know, I actually don't, but I ran out.
I wouldn't know pocket listings of people that say I don't want to come sign out here. I heard you're really good.
We've
I
got
know- I know-
some things to hurry up.
Okay. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I'll send all of you names. Yeah, it's 404
How do you build one?
719
Oh, there you go.
1414. Yeah, awesome. Sounds great. Awesome. Best way to reach me is text because I missed like 5 calls while I'm standing here. So, yeah, who knows? Baker. And my email is super easy. It's Eric Baker at KW. Yep. Somehow I'm the only Eric Baker at KW.
Sounds good. But it's a nice ring to it.
I mean, we can talk about of course. Absolutely. Thank you guys. Have a great afternoon.
And you know, here we are. Yes, that is awesome. That is so awesome. You ran it to each other at the city winery. Yeah, and then I met a girl who was just getting into like that's a great idea.
So it gives you 2 little
Yeah.
That's cute, that's right there, oh my god.
You're talking about one driver that you talk to that not different because of that one driver is either one's different. This one's different than the other. This one's
No.
As you see, I put it
Like what he said, it's the other one. Somebody says, and then we'll try to utilize. I don't wanna be pigeonholed. So, well, you know what, so I have so, it's because I know that Smyrna, Doug is the owner, and I put together the years and I swear that's right. I go, yeah, I thought Millie, okay. So I just thought, you know, Dana said, you know, when you were asleep.
Yes, ma'am.
Well,
I'm new, so,
Yeah, it was good. He's always.
fourth week.
I'm glad it is so short. Yes, so.
And my daughter, she's
Bring
like,
it out.
Yes, yes.
I will. I have part of my clients that are so well here is water and they're giving me referrals because I'm like,
If I don't answer, I tell them.
and Jen and John, that was such a big part of this business. I'm just trying to get my first contact. But I didn't know where. Yeah, there's my hour. Yeah, make the best of it. And I would love to find a buyer that I can Orlando or whatever. Go start with the data. And
Good thing is that. Yeah, I had to for a little while.
My daughter thinks I just live in the house. Yeah, she goes around. And then in the morning, like
This is my board, anything I can to get it on their minds, you know. These were supposed to be the party favors and they were late. But I'll send it to them. Yeah. I gotta run to an appointment later, so next time. All right, absolutely. Let me know if you need anything. At some point, I probably will, you know, and I'll probably tell everyone.
you get it on when it does.
Did you already have my card?
I don't.
I just don't know.
Listen, I need to get to the beach, I saw that, I went, oh my God, thank you.
I'll give you one of mine.
But anyway,
I need to,
absolutely lovely, thank you so much. Jim, did you see these?
The face.
The beach?
No, what are they?
Well, she gives them out.
With my business
With her
card on
business
it.
card.
And I love the color of your nail polish, I mean, your foot polish. I just believe.
Okay, roll into the finance center.
I did.
Roll in, yeah.
Someone else.
It's not that I enjoy getting home. You know, my daughter goes, oh, you know, they don't think you have a life, that's why. It's because I remember.
I understand. And on the surface, it's loan is maximum loan amount, but I didn't know what the term was, base amount, plus the roll. None of the base amount's $350. You can roll in whatever the.
She will not call me and I won't answer her, cause I'm always afraid it's the big one.
Yeah.
And you know
All right,
what?
great.
It
If I
is.
get any luck with this thing here today, we'll
So
get
we've
together.
gotta
I've already
prioritize,
made a stack of
and
them
as we
up, make sure they're
prioritize,
up.
we'll bring other people into our group and
Yeah,
give
and
out.
also,
Okay.
Like, right, you gotta go. Are you interested?
No.
You? Jim,
Yeah, I think I got it.
they're not on our team yet, they can join our team.
You don't have to
We're
leave.
called the Epic Team too, it's kinda nice to have,
Yeah, it's,
you know, I have Epic, they come, you come, that's how they go, I like that.
All right, well, stay, I'll stay in touch with you.
Are we doing
No, I just got.
Yeah, this is my partner, and, but I mean,
We
not like.
just opened up a new article that, we stumble on stuff every day. So my wife works for Mother's Morning Out. Now, all she's doing all day long is talking to people that are selling their house and moving into a community. So all of a sudden, this guy, she's talking to this guy, and she says, for his mother, and he says, well, how much is it in Griffin at this place? And she goes, what kind of care does she need? $3,500 a month. He goes, holy shit. He said, that's more than my house payment. So he said, my wife has a house up in Alpharetta. Well, the house up in Alpharetta, a piece of crap, 500, so it's probably 800,000 to 900,000. So he
And then if
says,
you wanna know where you're at,
he says, I'm just gonna go buy a house.
you go back to training.
My wife, she can't say it, so all of a sudden, I'm starting to think, I'm thinking,
Honestly, it's
so
higher than we wanted
I
to be.
found out that Delaware
That was his
Communities
personal, as far
sells,
as-
has
as far as
communities
the rate is
that are
concerned,
just like these
we don't
assisted
come-
living, but you own your own house.
Yeah.
And you can rent, but you own it.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, Rita and I sold this lady's house, 2 years old, 74, sold her house. She moved to Texas to find a
And she
man.
moved back in 2 weeks.
Moved back in 2 weeks.
Wait, she went to go find a man.
Yeah.
Well, then, yeah.
Yeah, a
her
man.
dream
And
was.
she got one in 2 weeks?
Yeah.
No.
No, we gave her her dream, I always ask people, what's your dream? And talk about crying, she was crying, she said, my dream is, you know, back
You
when,
could help me,
and
Andy.
I said, well, who do you know there? And she goes, I know I have a brother there.
Well,
And
maybe
then
it's
she
just
another brother, in another
got
place,
it, so
and I said, well, that sounds like winter, and she said, she goes, yeah, and he's in the whatever.
When I get you a hammer and a nail,
I said, well, guess what?
They show you how to set up a
I saw my house, I mean, and the thing is, I believed it at the moment, and I said, if I were you, I saw my house, I'd go with my brother, they travel back, they're gonna let that one house, that's what they promised
Oh, you
her.
did just-
Okay,
okay.
she gets down there, and the wife's going, you're not having a run in my house.
well, they're coming off of,
And
Pulled away from the
she
patient
was
board.
like devastated.
and I don't want.
Then
them to
she
take
took
it.
everything, we told her not to do it, okay? She took everything she
Right in front of
owned,
your
okay,
eyeballs.
this house was packed, right?
It was a
I mean,
mess.
it was a mess, it was packed.
We just
She
had-
takes
I never had
everything, has 4 storage
Yeah.
units.
I left there.
And she moved back and all her storage is there, and she's paying $400 a month.
And it's so low.
So she kept calling me, and finally I said, Jim, I gotta take this off. So I take
Here,
find
yeah.
out that she's back in Georgia, but I thought she was back in Georgia just to visit her other brother. But she said no, and she's there temporarily till she finds something else. I won't worry, tell her that.
Housemagnets.com.
Oh, I just want some from them.
Yeah.
You
Okay.
remember that?
And they're really interesting, I think you
Yes.
get 4 for 20 or something,
Yeah.
you get them blinged out a little bit more.
Oh, I want
Like
to play
15.
that.
I know,
Big
right?
down.
I know, right? I'm going to do, and I can teach right now.
I am too.
So I have to
I am
know.
too.
Yeah, cause I'm starting to feel, nice to meet you, you're such a
You know what I
sweetheart.
do? I have a piece of candy for you.
I just had some chips, but you know, I
Okay,
need a meal.
yeah, I know,
You know what I mean? I'm getting
But I'm always
weird.
glad to do that. 'Cause I know that.
Thank you,
I have a
yes.
stage for it.
By the way,
Hey,
Yeah, I know. Well,
that's amazing.
we usually talk.
Yes.
Yeah, but you know, it's hard.
I read it.
It is.
I give all the credit.
Yep, absolutely.
Anyway, I'll call you. Bye, sweetie.
Bye-bye.
But it's cool because we can pop up a document that says Georgia law.
Okay,
Jim, where's that place where it's in here that you can buy? Or is that all online?
there's no place to get.
I thought she said there's books and, is she talking about? Yeah, she said you can buy.
Yeah, really.
That could cause us.
Yeah, I need to.
Okay. All right. What did our friend, yeah, what did our friend want to do? I wrote down.
You do? Yeah, yeah.
Eric Bailey, put down in the center, area of the square. He loves,
Oh, I thought it was Baker, it's Baylor.
Baker.
Baker, that's what I thought.
He loves text. Call
Okay, text, great.
404-719-1413.
I just printed. Yeah. I printed it from,
Ask him.
I'm gonna send one right now, so you know, it's good luck.
You need to ask him, because I have to deal with these, is how does he, these people that come to you for pocket
if you don't use this,
how would you
give
do
it to you, and they want it.
these people that, you know, there's people that come to you and say, oh, we'll let you, we'll give you an advertising agreement, it's allowed, you don't want to listen, you know, you don't want to sign on.
Whatever you wanna do.
I want to just tell me what how I'm
You have an opinion about it.
I think that'd be,
This
one of
is
these.
regulations on this.
404-719.
And that puts them out there.
Tell me how easy it is to
But
sign
we
it.
decided, you're looking pretty casual today.
I am. I'm actually heading out of town.
Hey,
How are y'all?
have
Good to see you.
fun.
Where you going?
I'm just going to Chattanooga. I got a meeting up there tonight, so I'm just going up
You
there.
said you could pay it for it.
So you just have to make sure your
Something she
profile is
wasn't,
set up right, like where it
she
has all
never
the
liked to
secure,
time to selling that.
plugs in.
Oh, it's already closed.
That's the part I like.
Right, yeah, I know, I thought you did. I
Could
just
you
wasn't
pay her
sure.
a larger referral fee?
That's what
Something else, that's what we're thinking of doing.
What we said is we'll pick, well, yeah, well.
I mean, you don't care if it's 31% or 32%.
No, because we're just trying to make up something on another thing.
Figure out the math and then do the percentage on
Alright,
it.
perfect.
And it
I'll
also,
let you know that.
it also says.
Let's have fun.
Hey, what y'all think of the, how about Mira?
Come on, Aaron was just, I mean, every one of them.
Were you here for Cody?
And if you,
No.
Yesterday, I haven't watched.
But I'm telling you.
Where's it at?
I know why.
and if you don't wanna use dot
First of all,
It's
I
killing
don't,
it.
people get sometimes, they can't believe
they
it.
have a DocuSign.
Everyone here is.
Go to,
It's amazing.
that's why Sean was at the
Yeah.
bar. You know what, go to YouTube.
You go ahead and.
And search AW First Atlanta Video. And Rita.
Yeah.
And Jim, subscribe to them.
Okay.
Because every time we record, it'll say video.
Oh, I love it. Be safe.
All right, thanks. Bye. Love y'all.
First, at first you'll add a video and subscribe.
Otherwise, they would just be inundated.
No, I would definitely look at that.
So like for this one, for the fire company, they don't have a check-in. But on a purchase and sale agreement.
Maybe I was that way.
Yeah, if you go.
Yeah, do it now. Okay, so let me do this before I get off. He said, go to YouTube first, I'll on video.
Or they can come here
So-
without. Like if they're in the area and you're busy or something, you say, just take it to the office, give it to them.
PDF is fine.
property address is written on the original.
Okay, we'll do the PDFs.
Yeah, yeah.
For the day, and you
Yeah,
just
bring
have
that check.
original.
Yes, no, you already have it in the
On your
escrow
desk, and
account.
we'll.
Oh.
Yes.
So you're gonna be back in town, you're going out of town?
Yeah,
or
no,
you're
he's,
gonna be back in?
I noticed though, he didn't really know Georgia's
All right,
specifics.
well, we'll pick him up
Yeah,
after
he
next
was-
Tuesday.
he was-
Unless the mortgage company's in
Let's do
there.
that.
He was even asking like, do you do attorneys here?
Yeah.
So he
Well,
wasn't
search
sure.
there. Search.
Put it,
Yeah, I love
Yeah.
escrow, I hate closings.
Yeah, I mean,
all that.
because I think sometimes the mortgage companies like to see the cool.
buyer sees seller across.
Yeah, yeah, you know, if you had a purchase transaction.
Oh.
Wait a minute,
I know.
just a second.
But,
Alright, so we got another deal
about the
going.
rental property, we couldn't agree on the time, and I was like, they kept wanting me to.
There's a chicken.
Well, here it is, but,
They're like, well, it has to work for everyone. I'm like,
What do
I
you-
get it.
how do you
It's fine.
subscribe?
It's gotta work for me too. So I, anyway, I couldn't go until a certain time.
well, I got it up, so here's the
They just
video,
have the sellers
but he
sell-
said that if you
So
call
see, Kim.
subscribers.
We went in.
Okay, there you
No,
go.
I don't get what's
And we did our side.
Alright,
Oh,
let me
really?
get
You're
this.
separate?
Seven.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's good.
yeah, but that was because I was kind of nervous about it, and I was just like, well, okay, I have to do noon, and I was like, I can't.
Yeah.
And they were trying to
Sure.
push me around and say, well, there's a closing attorney, there's a seller, there's all these people, and we all have to come to an agreement on the time. And I was like, well, I'm doing my best, but I can't get there till this time, so be creative.
Yeah.
And they did it.
Oh, well,
But now that I'm on this side of it, I'd probably be about it.
Yeah.
Like, no, you gotta stick to the time.
I hear
But I
you.
mean,
Yeah, I don't know how.
when I first moved here, I was like, oh shit, you should come to me. I should sign my paperwork on my couch with a notary.
Yeah.
Like, you know, they do in California because, you know, I thought I was like on the title.
How long you been here?
6 weeks.
Oh, that's all? Oh, hell. Yeah. You know what, though, what part of California did you live in?
I lived in Pasadena.
Oh, okay.
And,
My friend lives in Pasadena.
and in Arcadia, which is right
The
next
weather,
door.
the sunshine, oh,
Phenomenal.
at the beach, I mean, you get a lot of overcast.
You do 70s.
Yeah, yeah, it's cool, it's hot up there.
It is.
Yeah.
I'm going back, June 20th.
I'm sure you've been to the Rose Bowl. I was there for the USC UCLA game.
Oh, I used to always go.
Man, you had
We
to
would start
walk
drinking at
about-
8 a.m.
Man,
for a
we were at
2
the-
p.m.
we were-
kickoff.
We were literally, my buddy worked for GTE at the time, and they were free tickets, and they were literally the top row.
Yeah.
And hell, halftime, we left and went and watched that at a bar.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Yeah, yeah. It's more about like the whole
Yes.
pregame.
Yeah,
all that
yeah,
stuff.
yeah, it's just a festivity.
Yeah. But they're pretty passionate about their SEC football.
Oh, yeah.
In the southeast here, so.
To the Southeast Conferences, but the USC's ranked number 2 this year.
Yeah. So everyone in my subdivision
tons of
puts
training.
their banner,
Yeah.
their flags out, right? And they're
It's
all
amazing, yeah,
Auburn,
Lakers and SC,
Georgia.
that's it, and Dodgers, of course.
Yeah, well, I'm saying here in
Oh, really?
Atlanta, in my subdivision, everyone's flying their flags out come fall.
Yeah.
Rita, you
They
need
got all the
Kim to
colors,
stop to
Oh,
do this,
yeah.
all this
Tennessee.
training
This is
on
the
there.
regional
And all these
UGA.
videos and all the
And then
training.
Oh,
I put a USC flag out.
Okay,
You should,
let me
like,
see.
4 neighbors were like,
Yeah.
This guy
you know,
is
Did you
Jake.
go to SC?
No, but I'm just a fan. And, so.
Yeah, no, that's, they can't hold a pro team. Did they get one now?
Okay, Philip, we gotta see
So they're
what's
just
going on
North
there, and then we gotta get back to.
Inglewood.
Yeah, Hollywood.
Hollywood Park, that's
And we
gone.
gotta call
That's
what's her name, we
gone.
got to get the list
Really?
in.
Completely gone. They were selling the seats, they were auctioning all
You
the
know the horses
fixtures.
much?
My dad still works at the track.
So
Or
that
is
got
it
to
Morris? Hey, you're my tenant.
Oh, really?
So when he made application, you know.
I really like you,
Yeah.
Jason.
Oh,
No, I
That
do.
brokered horse racing.
We've got so much
Rachel,
work,
you're-
I'm
oh,
using up hours
Tell
a
you,
day.
you just over, he said you gotta go and
Yeah.
He was a cool guy.
Yeah.
And I said,
I
Bruce,
think
You
it's
go to
very
KW
Nakatani.
Right, is that right?
KW First
And
Atlanta.
I asked him, I said,
And
Yeah.
that's what all our training is. So
You
you
can buy that.
can go back and look at what just happened today.
And they're like,
The
this
guy
guy-
you missed yesterday.
Anything we want.
And then when you subscribe to it, they send you links of what's gonna happen.
Yeah, I asked you
Yeah,
about your
so
computer
you
because
subscribe,
battery life seems to
because
be
we were saying we were sorry. because
declining.
of the-
Yeah, declining
Let me get back
rapidly.
up.
Like all of a sudden my battery was not
Let's see.
But, I don't know why. Hi.
I'm Rita.
Hi, Rita.
We,
Sure.
Israel,
I have
Wales,
one of those, I love that.
local,
Isn't that amazing?
It's a good computer. It's, easy to use.
you got one lady owns 80
And,
houses, another one's owns 40.
Oh, you have the same thing?
Yeah, Air.
We're to
Yeah,
the
I
point
love
where
it.
we're.
It has limited,
we're-
I never take it with me because I'm always afraid I'm gonna leave it.
I'll give you an example.
But see, you guys,
We
nice
got
thing
back-to-back
different.
closings. Same,
Well, I mean, you go
that's,
into a house.
so we're in the closing.
Oh, no, I'll bring it
House,
for
the
that,
first closing.
but I wouldn't just.
I think
for
The
the
seller
rest.
wasn't real happy with me, 'cause I did a 203.
Well, I
I'm
cracked
always
the
afraid of leaving anything in that.
Yeah.
Termination,
I
that bad
was-
crap.
I didn't have it in a bag and I was
So-
just kind of tossing it around
Well, you mean
like you are
just
now.
like
So-
that,
so-
you mean
Something,
that?
something
Yeah.
about
So bring it-
I dented it and then when I opened it,
So I bring it, so all of a sudden I go out
So
there.
it was
Have you
really
ever seen a
simple.
house?
This is a
Yeah,
really neat
yeah.
house, the 30310 zip code.
Wow.
It's called the West End.
refurbished room.
Yeah. It was worth it.
Cost me a lot of money to do.
Yeah.
Great, I paid $1 million.
Yeah.
But it was up.
This is the last stuff.
Yeah.
They're good.
I'm someone that unless something falls apart, I just keep using it.
Yeah.
I had
You
the
were
flip
appraised for
phone till it
130.
finally went.
Yeah, you were accepted
It was
117.
falling on the ground and
So
my.
we called up one of our investors.
Mom, this is
He went and bought the house, so he closed.
Anyway, what
So
do
we're
you-
talking
what do
to
you
him,
specialize in?
waiting for the
Either
closing
side,
attorney.
doesn't matter.
We sold
Great,
two
okay,
houses.
and, do you, any price range
The
or?
market, the guy
Great, okay.
sold us,
Yeah, we do a lot.
gave us the house to
Any area?
sell. The second house
Cobb County.
is a
Well,
wholesale.
okay,
Primarily.
You know about wholesale.
we just got a listing
How
on
we
Square,
want it.
Marietta, and I've done almost all of Philip Goldstein, the guy that owns.
So we're talking,
Pretty much
so
owns
we're trying to
the Square, I put together
who owns
the,
it?
Starbucks deal.
Oh, wow.
And,
so that's
but I just, I just develop
We're not-
relationships with people.
Sure.
And what I can't do, I pay a lot of people, and I pay a lot of people because I can't do it myself
Sure.
right now. And I don't even try, I never opened the door.
Florida,
Well, I've never opened the door, I've never shown. Well, I mean, I go once in a
Yeah,
while,
yeah.
but I've never shown
all of a
house,
sudden, we just
never
start
put a
telling
listing.
you got houses to buy,
I just
we have
wanna
houses
know
to sell
how to
you,
do it, so I
and
can
what do you
tell
wanna buy?
someone,
Sure,
well, you
no,
gotta
of
do
course.
this.
So she
And
says,
what else have I done?
well, I got a house in Stone Mountain, it's been sitting
Anyway, I don't
forever.
do any of
Could
those.
you check it out for me?
I just,
'Cause I don't know the
I get
conditions.
leads.
Yeah.
In
I
the
talk
hour,
to people at the
I
end
went
of
out
the
to
day,
the
my
house,
daughter,
went
you
in
know
the
how tired I
house,
am, she goes, oh.
was
must
taking
be hard
pictures
to get
outside,
all
a
day."
girl comes in, said, I was looking at that house
Cobb
for
County, Smyrna
7
Plains,
months. I've been
Sandy
I've been
Springs
watching
area.
these people steal
Oh,
stuff
yeah,
out of here.
okay.
This area.
Put a contract on it that day. So
I
now,
mean,
here's a
I
lady called us,
used the term,
in
I sold
2 hours, she had a contract.
And I.
On a house that she told us to go look at.
Lots of condos.
So
Yeah.
now, I do commercial.
And I,
Cause you were so busy doing it, yeah.
She said, why? I said, I've been in commercial for 5 years.
I used to turn on area brokerage, like,
Multi-use.
there's no such thing.
Oh, that's funny.
Here's what I like.
Well, you should
So
work
then I
with
send her an
them.
email, a nice
Like,
email. I
you're
said,
gonna
look, I
probably
need to
have a
know
better
exactly.
Well,
and
you know
your
what,
price
I
points.
get called for the
Yeah.
rescue.
I need to know your price
Yeah,
points.
well, that's what I mean, good company.
Eric,
Your
Eric,
categories
Eric,
and
good.
everything.
In other words, I always get the ones that.
Also,
And then
I
they'll
used to
call
be
me
alone.
like 2 o'clock in the
And I
morning,
used to be
because
a
they
part
know
of
I'll
that.
take a call. I mean, I would just take a call at 2 o'clock, and I can wake up and go right back to sleep. And so
Because all
anyway,
the builders, they give
this
you
is
a project,
whatever,
and
I
we
was
can
wondering if you could help, and I go,